I feel like just about everybody has a couple of movies that are pretty suspect. Whenever they're watching them, they think to themselves, this is not very good, but I'm having a good time with it. In this video, I'm going to give you guys some of my biggest guilty pleasure horror films, movies I think the majority of people might not like, and they're objectively not that good, especially in the eyes of critics. These are movies I tend to throw on in the background when I'm doing something else, like cooking or cleaning, and just movies that are just kind of comfort food for me. Sit back, relax, join me in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think of any of these films. Do videos like this all the time, horror lists, new releases, scary reviews, so join me down below. You want more of those? Let's talk guilty pleasures I've seen an unhealthy amount of times. No list like this could be complete without a movie that fits right in when I say those words, and that is Freddy vs. Jason. A campy masterpiece of having two horror icons battling against one another. Honestly, I kind of miss the era where this movie was even made possible. It feels like we are so far removed from that, we will never get something like it ever again. Between the fact that these production companies are always in battles over the copyright properties, it just feels like something we could never get nowadays. And looking back, I did not appreciate it at the time, even though this is not a good movie, and I know it. Having Jason Voorhees versus Freddy Krueger, seeing which of them can kill more people, having them fight in each other's world. Sounds ridiculous? It is. The first time I saw this film, I knew it was going to be a doozy. That scene where the guy gets snapped in half with the foldable bed, and every time I've seen the movie since, I still laugh like it's the first time when I see that. It looks so cheesy. Iconic lines like, "Why won't you die?" Just a silly, campy film that I feel like came out at the perfect time, because even if we got movies like that nowadays, it feels like everybody's a critic. Everybody's a little bit snobby with their noses in the air. At the time it came out, I remember watching this at a sleepover with a ton of friends, and we were laughing our asses off at how silly this movie is, and it is aged like a fine wine. So Freddy vs. Jason, if you've never seen the film, it's not good, but it's fun, and if you like those two franchises, we'll never get something like it again, I can all but guarantee, so it will always have a special place to me. I have an idea for a movie. How about we take a house, and in the basement of this house, every walled off room will have a different ghost in it. The movie is 13 Ghosts. When this movie came out and I was a lot younger, it's kind of silly to say, but I actually thought parts of it were scary, especially the Juggernaut and the Jackal. I thought the creature design of these monsters was actually effective. But obviously, being a little bit older now and looking back, it was silly to think, because this movie is not scary at all. It's actually more of a comedy, I feel like, at least if you view it in the lens I do. The plot of the movie, you have this family that inherits this incredibly rich mansion that's like this glass house, and in the basement you have these ghosts that are trapped off behind these glass walls. You can only see the ghosts with glasses, which feels like something out of a trip to Universal Studios, and upon inheriting this house, they manage to release the ghosts in the basement, and then things just get out of turn because you have 13 different ghosts that are described that are all going about killing. And I don't think it's creepy at all anymore, but I do think there are some really cool scenes in here. There's a kill involving a closing glass door. I think it's really effective. You have the hottest ghost ever depicted on screen. Come on, if you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about. And you have some really cool design here, as I said, most noticeably the Jackal, which they tease a good bit, the Juggernaut when you finally get him, and you have some great performances from Tony Shalhoub and Matthew Lillard, who played Stu in Scream, if you're unfamiliar with the name. Just a silly, campy haunted house film that I think has aged incredibly well over the years. Probably one of the best remakes of an old school classic that has gone on to kind of become a cult classic. Not a movie, if I was sifting wine, I would rate very high objectively, but a movie that I think traditional horror fans or fans of silly haunted house movies will have a good time with. And over the years, I find it to be one of the movies that is on TV more and more often, and it's on around Halloween time more often, because I think more people are entering my camp, just accepting as bad as this movie is. It's so much fun. Speaking with the word bad, this next movie is somehow my most watched movie in its franchise, and that is Texas Chainsaw 3D. Yeah, 3D, the one with Trey Songz. I don't know why. I've talked to so many people about this. I almost feel like I need therapy for saying it, but this somehow is by far my most watched Texas Chainsaw film, and it's not the best one, even close. For some reason, I have always found this film to be the most watchable, the campiest, just the silliest Texas Chainsaw. It feels like once or twice a year I'm scrolling on a streaming platform or looking through my DVDs, and I just look at it and I go, I haven't seen that movie in a while. Maybe I'll give it a watch, and I know it's not good. If you're not sold on ever watching this film, just know that the star of it is Alexandra Daddario. There you go. But in this one, she inherits this property that belonged to her family. She doesn't know who they are, and she gets a key to this house, and obviously it's the house that Leatherface lives in. The gimmick to this film, clearly as it's in the title, is this was in 3D. They were trying to do that in a lot of horror films around the time this came out, between My Bloody Valentine and this. And this is probably one of the dumbest slasher films ever. There's a scene in this film that makes me laugh every single time I see it, where you have a cop walking through a house and he's like FaceTiming the other detectives and he's just following this long streak of blood, as if everybody watching the film doesn't know this guy's going to get bludgeoned to death about 2 seconds later, but they're saying, come on, follow it, follow it. And he's walking around with an iPhone with a flashlight. It's ridiculous. But I think what this movie manages to do that a lot of other entries in this franchise don't, this one almost feels like a live action cartoon version of the franchise to me, which makes it so digestible, and it kind of does everything I want when I'm not in the mood to turn my brain on with these movies. You're watching a bunch of stupid, unlikable characters running around the property, getting bludgeoned and chainsawed to death by Leatherface, up into a ridiculous conclusion with one of the worst line deliveries ever by Alexandra Daddario. If you've seen the movie, you know. And this is just a film, as I said, I have no idea why I've seen it so much, but I do enjoy it, even though I know it's not good, and I just think it's almost satire in my eyes that it could be so bad. Oh yeah, he's got a terrible mask in this one as well. It's hard to talk about horror from the late 90s and early 2000s without talking about Urban Legend. A slasher film involving Jared Leto about a killer going around and killing people based on famous urban legend. It's about as silly and fun as it sounds. Movie starts off, you have somebody driving on the highway, that old urban legend where somebody's in the back seat, somebody's flicking their lights to let them know. And that sets a precedent for what this entire movie is going to be. It's just a silly, schlocky late 90s horror film with that campy acting, much like I Know What You Did Last Summer. Except in this one, you have a mystery whodunit of who's killing all of the kids on campus based on famous urban legends. And I think this one is oddly creative, even though it kind of falls off towards the second half, just because there's so many different slashers from that era, and movies nowadays that have kind of copied this formula, it's very easy to see it coming. You like slashers from the late 90s, early 2000s, you want to see Jared Leto try to give a serious performance after the recent ones he keeps giving. If you like movies like that with a killer on a college campus going around killing people based on stories you've probably heard 15 times around the campfire or read in storybooks as a kid, give this one a look. It's a lot better than some of the silly slashers from that era. I will admit, I have not seen this one as much as the other ones, just because for some reason this got yanked off of every streaming service, and I forgot where my DVD is, so I don't know where I put it. House of Wax, starring Paris Hilton. In this one, you have a group of friends that goes to this wax museum, and you guessed it, there's a guy who's actually turning people in this small town into the wax museum artifacts themselves. Now, this is one of the films on this list that I know for a fact is a cult classic, because I see a lot of posts on Twitter and other areas about this film, people saying that they want a remake of it, and I'm kind of there for it as well. But over the years, this movie has picked up a reputation for a couple of reasons. Most noticeably, it stars Paris Hilton, and we all know
that is really hot.
But still, she is in this film, so I guess her acting career didn't go too poorly. Other reason I always remember this film, there was one other moment involving a sewer grate. If you know, you know. Yeah, that scene, nightmare fuel. At the risk of sounding redundant, again, just a silly, campy slasher film that was from a simpler time that sincerely I miss nowadays as a horror fan. And the last film I'm going to talk about in this video, much like Texas Chainsaw 3D, is not the best movie in its franchise, but somehow is the one I've seen the most by far. That is the remake of Black Christmas. Not really a Halloween film, obviously, more of a Christmas slasher, but another film I feel like if you kind of can distance it from the original, you can have some fun with the differences they've done in this remake as opposed to that original, which is just a legitimately awesome film. Basically the same exact story. You have a bunch of incredibly hot sorority sisters. I need to point out that detail if you need motivation of watching it, that are all living at this sorority house during the Christmas holidays when somebody is killing them off one by one, calling them with mysterious phone calls named Billy. This movie is oddly obsessed with eyeballs. I feel like there's actually 7 or 8 kills involving people getting their eyeballs stabbed out. It's like it was a conscious decision to kill every character in the same way. Although it does change up some things compared to the original film, I think make this movie kind of more watchable. That movie's more suspenseful and tense, and it's just legitimate, where this movie feels a lot more like Texas Chainsaw 3D or a movie like Urban Legend. It feels like a movie from that time period, the early 2000s. During this era, we got so many different horror remakes that were just trying to do the same exact formula. You took an iconic film, make it a lot more fast-paced, a lot more generic, which is why a lot of these remakes don't age well in the eyes of people, but still, if you like the concept of Christmas horror, I had to mention it because I've watched this movie an unhealthy amount of times, and I enjoy it. But yeah, let me know your thoughts down below. Do you find these movies to be fun? Do you find these movies to just be terrible? Let me know your guilty pleasures down below in the comments. I'm going to put a link up here to some other horror videos of movies you should watch around Halloween time and just some of my favorite, most underrated ones. Join the channel. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.